Hello everyone, and welcome to the recap of all things track of the day for April of 2026. Whether it be the authors of said tracks, the styles of them, Cup of the Day winners, world record holders, or many of the other various stats, I will have them all here for you today. Now, as usual, the first chapter we will look at here today is the authors themselves, because without them, we would not have the tracks in the first place. So, for the month of April, there were 38 different authors, which will tie it for the most in a month this year, again with the 38 authors from January. Now, 3 of those 38 authors would have multiple tracks featured throughout the month, with those being Artroy, Jabsky, and Glory, who would each have 2 tracks apiece. And that means Artroy's 3 tracks from January will remain the most in a month this year. April would also give us 9 first-time authors, which is 2 fewer than last month, as well as the second fewest this year. So, congratulations to all who had a track chosen this month, but what styles of tracks were they actually making? The month of April would have the most amount of unique styles featured in a month this year, edging out February's 16 different styles with 18 in total. Being featured the most throughout April and for the 4th straight month as well were mixed tracks, which just like last month were featured 5 times. Behind this, we have dirt and full speed tracks, which each appeared 3 times, followed by plastic, speed fun, speed tech, and tech, which were each featured twice. That will leave us with 11 tracks of other various styles, one of which will end up being one of the shortest tracks of the year. Going strictly by author times, there was a difference of over 27 seconds between the longest and shortest tracks in April, which is the second largest gap of the year. For the longest AT this month, that would come on April 3rd, with the track Faster Obstacle having its time of 59 seconds, and the shortest AT came on the 12th with the track Waterworks and its time of 31.648 seconds. Now, respectively, each of these will also be the second longest and second shortest ATs of the year. Now, for April as a whole, the average author time was 45.981 seconds, which is a massive outlier compared to the previous 3 months, which all came within 55 thousandths of 45 seconds flat. And that will therefore raise the average AT time for the year up quite a bit, from 45.02 seconds to 45.26 seconds. But as usual, the author times don't always show the whole picture, so the longest track this month was actually the full speed track Loop region, with its world record time of 54.636 seconds, and the shortest was the LOL track Pachinko machine, with its world record time of 10.813 seconds. Nonetheless, short or long, how hard was it to achieve these author medals? On average, April would end up being the second toughest month so far for author medal difficulty, but as usual, there are still a few outliers. Starting with the toughest AT this month, that would come on LAC 7's bobsleigh track Through a Glass Darkly, which at its day's end, not a single player had its author medal, and that will make it the toughest AT on the year. Now, moving over to the easier side of things, the most forgiving author medal this month came on the track Faster Obstacle, which had just over 5,600 players achieving it, and that amount of players will make it the 3rd easiest AT on the year. So, with all that said, the authors, the styles, the ATs, how well were the tracks actually received by the community? The month of April would fare pretty well compared to the previous 3 months, with 16 of the tracks having a positive score, the highest rated of which, and by a very slight margin as well, was on Jabsky's and Glory's track Bloody L, which received a score of 1.3. Now, that score of 1.3 will make it the second highest rated track of the year, but once again will fall short of Prof 10's track from January, First Horizon, which received a score of 1.4. As for the other 15 tracks that had a positive score, 10 of them would also receive a plus rating, and 5 of them would be neutrals. Then we have another 2 tracks that had a score of 0, and another 2 that unfortunately had no data available, and that means there will be 10 tracks that scored in the negatives. For these, and for the 3rd straight month in a row, the worst rated would come on a track made by Fuente, this one being their track Naranja V3, which had a score of negative 1.7. Still, this negative 1.7 is far better than the worst scoring track this year, which received a score of negative 2.3. As for the other 9 negative scores, 6 of them resulted in minus ratings, and 3 of them were neutrals. Finally, with the positives well outnumbering the negatives this month, the average track score for April was a .114, which makes it the first positive scoring month of the year, though overall will still result in a neutral rating. Now with all that said, did these higher rated tracks actually result in more players playing? Cup of the Days in April would see some highs, partially in thanks to a week of free club access, though on average would still see a very slight decrease in qualified player counts compared to March, losing roughly 19 players per cup. Now the most popular day of the week for participation in the month was Fridays, which had an average of 2,396 qualified players per cup, though again this is quite skewed by the Red Bull competition track, which was also free to play. The least popular day of April, and by a decent margin too, were Thursdays, which averaged 2,002 players per cup. Now for the individual days, again we see the aforementioned Red Bull track faster obstacle at the top with 3,953 qualified players, and that total will also make it the highest player count in a cup this year, surpassing Zerbresler's track from March 1st, which had 3,004 players. As for the lowest player count in a cup this month, that would come on April 17th with Vodis's plastic track By the Way, which had 1,724 players, and that is the second fewest in a cup this year. Now that was all just for qualifying player counts. What about actual participation? Cup of the Days in April would see an average of just over 500 players that would not join their respective cup after qualifying, equating to a 77% participation rate. As for the track that would hold the most players, that was the Dirt Track Convergent by Twixie and Jorday, which had just over 80% participation, and the track that held the fewest was the LOL Track Pachinko Machine, which saw just 68% of the qualified players actually joining. So, April would see some highs and some lows for participation in its Cup of the Days, but can the same be said for who was actually winning them? April would become the new leader with its total of unique Cup of the Day winners with a total of 22, which beats out February, which had 21. At the top, there was one player who would stand out amongst everyone, and yet again that someone would be Granati, who was able to win 5 Cup of the Days. However, those 5 wins are still down from his own 10-win domination from January, and will tie Scrappy for the 3rd most wins in a month. April would also see 4 other players who would each win 2 cups apiece, including Flyer, Link, Propanoia, and Scrappy. April, however, did not have a single player having back-to-back wins, but would have 4 first-time winners, of which were Cosmos, Deco, Lopshi, and Ornan. So, congratulations to all first-time winners and fast learners this month, but who would come away as the top time attack hunter? The month of April would see a decent increase in unique world record holders from March and tie with January with 23 unique world record holders. For the 4th straight month in a row of either tying for or having the most outright world records, we have Propanoia with 7 in total, which is 1 fewer than they achieved last month, but is the 2nd most they or anyone has achieved in a month this year. The only other player in April that would have multiple world records was Josh1248, who would have 2 of them. Propanoia would also be the only one to have a world record streak throughout April, which ended just after back-to-back days. But with that, we will conclude the Track of the Day recap for April of 2026. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to give it a like and subscribe, and I hope to see you all here next time with May's recap.